All right, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Nowakowski again. Thanks for joining Interline Creative Group, How to Target and Hit the Right Customers, which is sponsored by KB Resource. We'll talk about KB Resource in a second. Thank you for sponsoring. But this is basically a webinar that we did in January for the NKBA, but the recording had technical difficulties. So we're repeating it now, and I see a lot of people who were there coming on back. Thanks for coming back. Good to see all of you. We got a lot of Gmail and some architects, and we know we have designers, so we're welcoming you, all of you, for this repeat session, but I've added some new things too. This is an AIA course, so good news for the architects. In the room, the architects will get full AIA credit for this course. It's also NKBA approved, so the kitchen and bath people who are in the audience, and there's plenty of them, will also get credit for that as well. This course was designed for today's executives, regardless if you're an architect, designers, in this difficult virus-infected economy. This course brings together proven tactics and how they have been reshaped to help increase your sales, because that's what we're all after, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Increase sales. What we want to do in this webinar, what we hope it will do, is empower you by taking control of finding new customers and nurturing them, which, by the way, has changed so dramatically. It's not just, it was pre-COVID, but which was changing, right? But COVID really changed everything. It begins with control and understanding of how customers and prospects consume, create, and distribute information. Because you may think you're in the architectural business, you may think you're in the interior design business, and as I mentioned, we have a lot of you in the audience. You may even think you're in the showroom business and just, produce products and such. You're all in the information business. And being in the information business, unless you know how information is distributed, created, and consumed, you're going to be out of business. So that's what we want to do today, is talk about the flow of information and show that your role in this three-part dance is really how to find them, attract them, and nurture them. We put some learning objectives to the course. How information is created, consumed, distributed. Proven techniques to find new people, new prospects, and tactics to nurture them. Which, by the way, these techniques have been around a long time, and all they did is morph. They haven't really changed. They've morphed into something else. We'll talk about that. We're going to recognize how to gain knowledge from the existing data that you yourselves have and allocate the time to increase sales through the creation of relevant content. You're going to hear me talk a lot about that today. Relevant content. By the way, there's a question box. I'd encourage you to put in your questions as we go through this. This is a dialogue. This is not just the monologue. I want to hear questions from you as we proceed. Because what we want to do is examine the strategy. There's nothing, ladies and gentlemen, more important than strategy. Here's some headlines from today's Wall Street Journal. U.S. growth surge could unbalance the fragile world economy. House progressives back revised COVID-19. What to know about unemployment benefits. Cleveland's Fed report. Japan risks resume. And you read these things, and everybody reads these things, and they make judgments, because this, ladies and gentlemen, is information. If you look at architects, I have a wide number of architects in the audience. By the way, I have a lot of AOL, Gmail people in the audience, so I really wasn't able to look at your websites ahead of time. But those of you who used your domain, your website addresses in your email, I was able to look at them, and I'm going to share some of those with you. This is the architectural news from this morning. Feeling the squeeze? Redesigning a post-pandemic practice. 39% of firm leaders expect that they will invest in new technology. Right? Here's the economy, right, from a construction point of view. Construction unemployment fell nearly 7% year over year. Did you not know that? Buttigieg says infrastructure faces a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and the last one, despite 2020 layoffs, the labor woes persist. Ladies and gentlemen, this is information. It flows into your email. It flows into your mind. The question is, what do you do about it? Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13, said, there's three kinds of people in the world. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. I'm going to guess that everybody, every single person or group that's watching this in the audience today is a person from the first two groups. They make things happen, right? And they watch what happens. But they make things happen. And by the way, Lovell wasn't the only guy who said this. If you go back to 1513, Mr. Machiavelli said there are three kinds of brains. One understands things unassisted. Another understands things when shown by others. But the third understands neither alone nor with the explanation of others. The first kind is excellent, the second kind excellent, but the third is pretty much useless. Ladies and gentlemen, the virus, and it's more the reaction to the virus by governments with the lockdowns, have caused enormous trouble and pain on businesses today. It's not just the virus, ladies and gentlemen. It's the reaction to the virus. That's why I shared these quotes with you, especially Lovell's. Look at Lovell's. You either make things happen, you watch what happens, or you wonder what happened. If you're in the wonder what happened group, you're out of business already. You're out of business already. Perception is reality. And if you're thinking about your customers and targeting customers, they're reading the same information that you are. They're reading those same headlines. They're getting despondent. Look at suicide rates among young people today because of what's going on with the schools. You have to understand, because I come from advertising world, and perception, in fact, is always reality. There's reality, but there's always the perception of reality. And if you're a large, medium, or small business, your perception of what is going on when the virus happened is going to be different if you're a big or small company, right? Look at Walmart. Target, they made money during this pandemic. If you were a manufacturer of we have a client that's actually in the manufacturing of plastics business, right? Resins and such. They're a major association. People who made plastics are booming because of the plastic shields, right? So it depends what type of business you're in, who your customers were, what the government did to you as a business, and about the people around you, and why you hire people. All COVID did, and the reaction to COVID, is bring all of that to the surface and exposed all of the weaknesses within business. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're still standing, if you're in this audience and you're still standing, that's my applause to you. Any business who is still standing after 2020 should be applauded and looked at for information on how they kept standing, which we're going to talk about. Because you are in the information more. Like I told you, whatever you're selling, it doesn't matter. You're in the information business. Now, it takes you longer to get a new customer these days, but relationships have always been the key to business. How you make them, how you break them, how you nurture them, and how you lose them. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about those today. We're going to talk about the customer you lost, the customer you most want, and the market you most want. Those are the three questions we have. So you may want to jot down some notes. What's the customer I lost that I want back? What's the customer I don't have that I want? And you may say, well, Jim, Jim, do you understand there's a virus going on? I just want anybody. Will anybody buy from me? You don't really want that. As much as I really say you do want that, you really don't want that. Because if you just get any Tom, Dick, or Harriet, that's not always the case. I've been in webinars in person where people would walk up to me and tell me horror stories about how they thought they were getting the perfect customer, right? The person who redesigned the kitchen that they just designed for $100,000, and he wanted to spend $250,000 on a redesign, and this remodeler thought it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, until he got into the business with that person. And that person would call him at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and just drove him nuts. And he asked me after that it wasn't an online webinar, it was actually a real webinar at KBiz several years ago. Jim, what do you think I should do about that? I basically said what you should do is weigh the principle. If you got some money into it, you got to walk from the business. It's how much pain can you sustain? That's really what we're talking about. Look at the restaurants today, how they got hammered and still are getting hammered. I'd like to welcome everybody. You see some logos in the lower left. Those were the logos that I grabbed very quickly from the 40 people that are out there. As I said, there's a lot of Gmails. I want to welcome everybody. This is sponsored by KB Resource. I'd like you to jot that down and go there after the webinar. Don't go now. Pay attention. KBResource.com is a kitchen and bath resource, but it's more than that. And I encourage you to do that, especially you designers. They have a wonderful creativity section. Enough of that. That's the commercial. So, as I mentioned, the customer I would most like to get that I don't have now is, if you go pre-COVID, you're going to answer that one way. But the virus has changed your answer today. As I said, you might have one or two people in mind, customers, prospects you want to get. But today's world, anything that moves, you want to shoot them and get them, right? The customer I lost that I would most like to get back. When COVID hit, you didn't just lose one customer. You probably lost a bunch of them, right? Through no fault of your own, correct? Most of the time it is your fault, right? Maybe it's theirs. But the virus did it. The government lockdowns did it. They prohibited business from happening. They changed everything. So the virus is going to change that answer. Maybe you don't want them back. And the market you would like to most penetrate. Maybe before COVID, it was the commercial marketplace. But then the virus hit, and I don't have to tell you what the virus is doing to the commercial marketplace today. So I want you to think about those three questions as we go forward. Do you have any questions? Put them down in the question box. Keep those three questions in mind with these considerations in the back of your mind. You ready? Time to flip the switch. Quit living in the past. Forget about what worked, what didn't work. You have to start thinking new. I come from a direct mail background, and one of the things I learned very early in my career is you have to test. T-E-S-T. You have to test things. You have to test tactics. You have to test this approach, that subject line. You have to test continually until you find the right thing that works. And one of the things that will always work, is being authentic, putting your authentic self, not just saying stuff to say stuff. And wait, Jim, are you saying that I should cause a little controversy? Well, maybe. You want to come close to the edge. You don't want to go over the edge, but you want to be, because, vanilla doesn't do anything, right? If you're vanilla, what is a great philosopher once said? What is the greatest insult? It's not that you could be hated. The greatest insult in life is to be indifferent, not to be indifferent. Oh, who cares, right? So in order to not have reactions like being indifferent, you have to say something that's authentic and relevant. At the end of last year, I asked our team, we have 15 people in Palatine, Illinois, why are we still standing? It's hard for me to believe that we're still standing, because we went through 9/11, we went through 2009, which absolutely devastated the market, including us. And we're still here. The words you see on the left are what they told me why we're still standing at our wrap-up meeting at the end of the year. Trust. Our clients trust us. Reputation. And I'm sure if you sit down with your teams or yourself and you talk to yourself, you're going to come up with very, very similar words. People, the people that work around you. We're fast service. Since I started the business 30 years ago, we've had two pillars. Those pillars have never changed. One of the things about change, you don't change for change's sake. There's enough change going on in the world, right? The pillars are, you ready? Unduplicated knowledge and service. Those pillars of Interline Creative Group have never changed. They will never change. Unduplicated service is harder. Service is not that hard. There's 24 hours in a day, and we'll put 24 hours in the day to the problem to solve the problem. And we're only limited by the scale of the 15 people, because 24 times 15, that's all the hours you have. And besides, we have personal things going on. We can't devote 24 hours a day to the problem, or can we? You see, how far are you willing to go to make things happen? One of the central issues you face as a business owner, or as a business, worker, as a team member, is how much time are you willing to spend on the problem? That's the secret. That's why we're still here. Our clients come to us for information. For example, last week, one of the clients we haven't heard from for 3 months called up and said, "We need your opinion. We just did a piece of research. I've accumulated it all, but I don't trust my own judgment. Would you read can I send you the raw data?" This is a major association. "And can you come to conclusions so I can compare your conclusions to our conclusions?" Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most advantages you have as an independent architect, designer, showroom, is you are outside the customer, outside the client. That third-party objectivity is what brings you your value to them. It certainly does. So I want you to think about that. We are still standing because we have customers who look to us for information. Our product it's not a building that we've designed. It's not anything. It's intellectual property. And the dirty little secret that I'm going to share with you is each one of you has intellectual property behind everything you sell. Your specifications are your intellectual property. I had an architect I talked to during COVID. He was saying, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." I said, "Well, you should really talk about what you've done." "What do you mean? I'm an architect. Everybody does what I do." We had a meeting with masks on. We had a meeting, and within an hour, not only did I convince this architect that he had something no other architect had, he really realized he's had this for the last 15 years. The more you look, the more you see, the more you see, the better you know where to look. Can I repeat that? The more you look, the more you see, the more you see, the better you know where to look. You just have to start looking. Look around yourself on what you do. You're in a world now where everything is digital. Before COVID, 70% of people went to Google first looking for what you sell. I'm going to repeat that. I don't want to be redundant, but I want to tell you that. Before COVID, 70% of the people who were looking for what you sell, whether it's architecture or products or whatever, went to Google first. After COVID, I've seen estimates as high as 95% are using Google to find things, right? What does that tell you? Well, it tells me that if you're not on page 1, you're not on. Nobody goes to page 2. I go to page 40 sometimes just to see what's there. But if you're not on page 1, you're not there. You're not in consideration. How many of you, and you don't know the answer to this, nor do I, how many of you have lost in the consideration battle by not being on page 1? So one of your goals has to be on page 1. Now, how do you do that? There's another webinar on that, but I'll give you the secret. It's content. It's what you put on your website, because Google reads everything. If you Google B2B Never Sleeps, and read that article, which was published on our website, was also published by the iMark Group, one of the major marketing groups in the United States for electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. They published this article, right? You'll see what I'm talking about. That was pre-COVID. Post-COVID, it's even worse. Everybody's online. So, how do you expect to be found in things like that? You need a plan. You got to sit down with a piece of paper and write out a plan. That plan should include tactics, objectives, of course, but tactics, and you need time. And of course, you need experience. Well, Jim, I don't know anything about SEO. Well, there's people out there who do. There's article. Google, how do I increase my SEO? You'll get over, what, 200 million results? But the secret of SEO is, as I told you, it's content and linking. That's really the secret, because Google indexes every page. We're going to talk about that. And your experience is unique. There are no fingerprints. There's no two people that have the same fingerprints, right? There are no two architects that do the same thing. There are no two interior designers that do the same thing. You have to look for your differentiation, pull it out, and that's what you start broadcasting. Flip the darn switch. Quit looking in the past. Flip that switch and look how people are and what they're doing today. Make yourself the news cycle. Don't think about vaccines. Don't think about this. Don't think about that. Make yourself the news cycle. What you do has to become the news cycle. I'm not saying ignore the virus. I'm not saying to ignore the news. But I am saying to ignore the virus and news in favor of your business. You've got to get people off. You got to bring them out of themselves and start thinking about, you know what's booming now? You know this. I don't have to tell you this. Remodeling. Remodeling in the home is going through the roof. Why? Because people are sitting home and they're realizing they don't like it. They didn't like it when they were going to work because they didn't see it as often. And now they're remodeling. Home gyms. Who would have thought that my exercise equipment in the basement of our home turned out to be one of the fabulous things that happened during the virus? Because the gym's closed and I just went down to the basement. Bought a subscriptions to Les Mills and off I go to the races. I'm exercising, right? You don't know. You have to react to things, right? What's the real objective today? Relationships, knowledge, strategy, and it begins with a plan. The list offer creative. Agencies often flip that and say, oh no, you got to be creative. You got to be funny. Forget it. Your list is the most important thing. You can have the best offer in the world, and if it goes to the wrong list, you ain't going to get squat. And your customer file, your customers who haven't been buying from you, are your best source of new business. So, what kind of stuff are you selling? You think you're selling this, but really, what kind of stuff are your prospects buying? You know what everybody wants to buy today? Safety, don't they? How do you position yourself against safety? What is safety? What is safety? If you're a designer and you go to a person's house with the mask on and they don't have masks on, what do you do? I've been involved in many discussions with designers. Some leave the mask on. Others ask the client, do you want me to take my mask off? You do what is comfortable to you. But what are you selling? What are you selling? Where do these people shop nowadays? If your website doesn't have what you sell on there, position papers, white papers. If you're an architect, look what Gensler's doing. Gensler started after the pandemic hit, producing what they call a dialogue. It's their newsletter. And they were talking in there about how, right, they're dealing with the virus. They were talking about elevators and commercial buildings. One of the best benefits of COVID, because everybody jumped online, are the webinars you can attend now. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been in webinars where I have no business being in. But since everybody is in the information business, people like McKinsey, people like, major Heinz, BOMA, major organizations are offering to you information that's going to help your business. One of the questions you have to ask yourself is, how many of these webinars have you attended? That's not the question. You're saying, well, Jim, there's just too many webinars. I get emails every day for webinars. Of course you do. But you have to choose them carefully. I'm serious. You will be able to be in a room with people you never thought you could be in the room with. Seriously, in the Zoom room. So learn from that. Ask, where are people shopping these days? They'll give you ideas. Look what happened to the hospitality business. All these businesses, right? One thing they're selling this, and the next thing you know, they can't sell it because no one's going there. So you have to write out that plan. You have to write the narrative. And you're going to say, well, Jim, this is pretty sophomoric, isn't it? No. You know why? Because first of all, you write it out just like you're writing to your eighth grader, right? The business I am in is this. This is what I sell. It sounds silly, but it's not, because as you start writing it, your thoughts will formulate into the reality of what you're really selling. Your pillars are no different than my pillars, believe it or not. You're in the service, each one of you are in the service business, and each one of you are in the unduplicated knowledge business. What you have to do is convince people that you have such unduplicated knowledge, which means you have to get them talking about not just about the virus and safety, but yourself. Yourself. Okay? No questions yet. That's good. Your plan should involve your website. Every webinar I've presented for the last 3 years says this: your website is your most important marketing tool. And I'm going to repeat that. Your website is your most important marketing tool. Why? Because it's your website, because Google indexes your website, counts your pages, counts your content, and delivers in the page one searches that people do when they go to the Google search bar, either your website or your competitor's website. Your website is the key to the puzzle. What you put on that website is really the essence of your differentiation. So when people hit your website, they read about you, they learn to love you, and then they call you. Databases. What does your customer file look like? We were talking to a client that we just signed up for SPIF programs. We do a lot of different things. And when we were talking to the client, they said they wanted to do the SPIF because they don't have this particular type of file. And we assured them that they not only had the type of file, that the file was in their company. And they said, where do you think that file is? I said, it's in your accounting department. Because the accounting department is where you collect money. And the money that you collect is from your customers. So they have the file. So you just got to, most accounting programs have an export. So export it into Excel, clean it up, and there's your database. But that's not the only database you need. If you're an architect, you may want to have the database of an association, like the BOMA Association. You may want to join an association. Databases are the key because they're their prospect. They're your targets. The internet is your key. You have to learn to use the internet to your advantage. Social media. Well, Jim, isn't social media going to kill the world? As one of the engineers I know said, it's evil and it will destroy the world, as we see it doing now, right? But it's not. It's an information source. You have to step back, don't get involved personally, and read what people are saying. There are companies that aggregate that. Major corporations go onto social media and aggregate opinions about their product, their competitive products. Guess what they also have opinions on? Your services. Your services. That doesn't mean you believe everybody, for heaven's sakes. But you have to get a sense of what's going on. And you should not, well, Jim, how do you network if I can't visit anybody? That's changing. That's changing. I remember the first client when I got the call, after about a couple of months into the pandemic, and he said, would you come over? I said, absolutely. He says, I said, I'll wear a mask. He says, great. I said, I'll wear 2 masks. When do you want me over now? I bought a thermometer, a digital thermometer. When I showed up with my mask on, I whipped out the thermometer, took my own temperature, showed him it was excellent. And he smiled through his mask. Did you know you could see smiles through the mask? He smiled because his eye, right? It was a great, they loved it. It was a 2-hour meeting. Horrible 2 hours with a mask on, but we did it. And do the unexpected. Do the unexpected. There's no script to follow. Look at this guy. This guy used a bucket truck to visit his mother on the 3rd floor of her assisted living. I'm not saying go rent out a bucket truck, right? But I'm saying this is unexpected. They wouldn't let him in to visit his mom, so he rented a bucket truck, and there he is, talking to his mom through the window. That's totally unexpected, and what a great moment to show you care. You need 24 hours a day for this activity, to do the planning. Jim, I don't have 24 hours. I've got a lot of obligations. Make the time you can. Find the time. Find the time. There's a great movie where I remember, where Robert De Niro, whatever you think of him, is in a coma, and he wakes up and he's been in a coma for years, and he wakes up, and they got to teach him. They got to teach him from scratch, like teaching a baby. So they take him for a walk, and he comes across a parking meter. And he says, "What's that?" And the doctor says, "That's a parking meter." He says, "What do you use it for?" And the doctor says, "Well, you put in some money there, and you can buy time. You buy time." And he looked at him with, childlike eyes, and he said, "You could buy time? Wouldn't that be nice if you could buy time? Wouldn't that? But you can't. You get the 24 like I get the 24. It's how you're going to use the 24. Your competitor has 24. He doesn't have 25. He's got 24. How are you going to use the 24? Well, Jim, I've got obligations. Well, then take care of the obligations. Life is a balance, or is it? If you're really driving for business, you become, don't take this the wrong way, imbalanced. And that's okay. For every rejection, you're coming closer to acceptance. You can't have success without failure. You've heard these things. Practice. How do you think Michael Jordan became Michael Jordan? He just woke up like Mozart and could write music? No. He was throwing free throws 3 hours a day. 3 hours. How long do you practice? I have a good friend who's going to have an operation later this month. He's an older person. And quite frankly, you're wondering why you would operate on a person of this age, right? But I know why. Because the doctor needs practice. They don't call it a practice for nothing. The practice of law, the practice of architecture. You learn through practicing. You make mistakes, you correct them, and you don't make them again. That's what you do. Well, COVID threw that out, right out the window, because the minute they locked down a state, your first decision is, are you an essential business? Isn't that right? Most people said you can't work, you can't be open unless you're essential. Well, if you read the documents of lockdown and you read what an essential business is, because I'm an English major and I like to use words, I like to define words so we know what we're talking about. The minute I read in Illinois what is and is not an essential business, we're an essential business. We are absolutely essential in at least one part of my business. So we never closed down. Never closed down. We practice hygiene, social distancing. You have the option to wear the mask, whatever. If COVID were to strike like it did, we know what to do. We practice safe hygiene. But I cannot be, non-essential in a thriving business. So master SEO. I want to give you some examples. If you Google what to do when you lose a pitch, so what do you do when you lose a pitch? You're going to get this, 7 things to ask when you lose a pitch. I wrote that blog probably 2 years before COVID. After I lost the pitch, I decided I would document this because I've lost a lot of pitches, but I also won a lot. But you learn when you lose. You don't learn when you win. You can learn something, but you really learn when you lose. This is my most... I track these things because we have a reverse IP lookup tracking code on our website, which is another story. You want to know what's going on when you put things on your website. We can talk about that if you have a question. But we track this. This has been read since I posted it over 15,000 times. That's not bad. That's not bad. Not that that's telling me there's a lot of losing going on in the world, but people do lose, and you actually learn when you lose. A lot of times, are you using a laser or a flashlight to solve the problem? When you're using a flashlight, you're looking at the whole picture, but if you use a laser, like you often hear people say, you need to be laser focused. Really, if you're laser focused, you're missing often the big picture. Just like you are if you shine a flashlight on something, you're missing peripheral vision. If you know what peripheral vision is, it's sometimes more important than straight on laser vision. You know why? Because with your peripheral vision, you can see things coming that are not in focus yet. And if you've ever been, God forbid, in a car accident, if you've ever been in a car accident, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Peripheral vision saved my life. Well, guess what? Peripheral vision in business is the same thing. If you get so focused on, the virus, you're missing the bigger picture. People still need things. They need what you're doing. The customer I lost that I would most like to get back. How did you lose this customer? Jim, it was the virus. In breaking of the relationship, who was at fault? Well, it was no one's fault. It was the virus's fault. You can answer each of these questions post-COVID by just saying, well, the virus did it. Right? Did you survey the customer when you lost them? No, I already knew it was the virus. You see what I'm saying? Don't blame the virus. The virus has nothing to do with why this customer was lost. You lost that customer because of fear. They were afraid to do business with you. That's the answer. So how do you overcome fear? How do you overcome not only your internal fear, right, your own fear, but other people's fear? You calm them down. You make them feel comfortable. Because who amongst us was not afraid, right? But if you've ever faced fear and looked at fear, you're the one who has to cure the fear. No one else can do it. No one else can do it. It's just practice. You think people going into dangerous situations are not afraid? Well, they're not afraid if they're nuts, but if they're normal, right? They're afraid. And as you think about your customers that you lost, what did you do to get them back? I'm going to give you some examples that we did in a bit. So the questions, you got to really ask, are you going to control the virus or are you going to let the virus control you? I have a saying here for the last 30 years I've been in business. I don't want software to control me. I want to control the software. I want the software to bend to my will, which is why we've experimented with all the software, not all of it, but a lot of it, leaders in the software field like CRMs. But they once you enter a program, right, you're a victim of the program. You have to use the program. And the only program I can think of that helps a business that doesn't really care what kind of business you're in is Excel. Accountants hate me because I use everything in Excel. My books are in Excel. I wrote a program to keep time in Excel. And I use the accountants just to put it into the regular books that they need to look at a business. I don't need their books. I don't need their ledgers. I have Excel. How do you think your customers are reacting and have been reacting to the virus? And how often have you contacted them since March 2020? Well, Jim, I've emailed them every week. I don't think you did. And even if you were to say that and it was true, I wouldn't, why would you, if your email, what are you sending them every week? That's the key to the puzzle. The contact strategy is great, but what are you sending them? Are you sending them ideas? Or are you sending things like, just hire me, please? That's not the way to do it. Flip the switch. I asked my office manager the other day when she brought in the single letter of that day's mail. We used to get 1,000 magazines a month before the virus. Magazine is another story. That was changing already. They were shrinking in size. Now we don't get 1,000 anymore. Of course, we don't. But I don't get any letters anymore. I don't even get mail. I got a letter the other day from Value Line Investing, and I said, is this all we've gotten? She says, I think it's being held up in the post office someplace. They keep asking the carriers, where's the mail? And there is no mail. Well, guess what? Mail still works. I can give you example. I sent a overnight letter to the president of a major plumbing company. He not only got it, he called me, which is what I asked him to do in the letter. Letters still work. Your customers are fearful, so bring them the solution. Private showings online. Create a room on your website where you bring them in and showcase your work. Use the Zoom room, right? Use the Zoom room. Make it easy for your customers. Yeah, and do email, but don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. What about the market? What is the market like now? that you want to penetrate. Well, geez, the virus changed it all. How big is that market? I don't know. The virus changed it all. You see what I'm saying? Before COVID, all this would change, right? Now it's the virus, the virus, the virus. Forget about the virus. If you want to penetrate the market, study that market. Ladies and gentlemen, every market is in flux. No one has the answers. You think someone has the answers? Let me give you the clue. Your answer is as good as anyone else's. When you go to these economic Zoom room, webinars, what do you hear? Well, we just don't know. We just don't know. We just don't know. Well, if they don't know, who does? If no one knows, your answer is as good. There's a great book called Blue Ocean and Red Ocean. I would recommend it highly to read it. We are now in blue ocean. There's not a lot of fighting going on. If you talk to some industries, as I mentioned, like plastics or remodeling, right? They're booming. They're doing work like crazy. Why? Because it's a blue ocean. There's plenty for everybody. But eventually it's going to be a red ocean, right? Flip the switch. If a specific market is your goal, nothing's changed except the tactics. Look at what do you think is going to happen to the commercial marketplace? Well, why don't you figure that out and offer that to your customers? How are people operating in the market today? I was on a webinar the other day and they said that, when you look at Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, there are some people out. But the offices are at 25% capacity. That's it. Some are at 10. How are people operating in that? You know as well as I do, there's going to be a hybrid solution that involves working from the office and working at home. What is the exact ratio? Who cares? Get into the game and figure it out for yourself and become a partner, because he who hesitates is lost. And the customer you want to get that you don't have now, what are the characteristics? Where do they hang out? Ask yourself these questions. And by the way, this webinar will be available as not only a recording, but as a PDF file after this. So if you're taking notes, great. If not, send me an email and I'll make sure you get the PDF file. Right? Look at their websites. The commercial marketplace is in turmoil. Aim somewhere else for a while. Go to the education market. Well, Jim, nobody's going to schools anymore. Well, why is that? Right? And since they're not going to schools, what should you do for the school for when they return? The tactics you use are going to be the same. Email, phone, mail. Use the mail, right? But you need the list, right? Go to LinkedIn and figure out who's the superintendent. It's all there, ladies and gentlemen. The virus hasn't changed anything. What has changed is how governments reacted to the virus, and that changed business. I'm not saying be a revolutionary, but I'm saying work within the system to get what you want. Here's some ideas. Mission statements. Make sure you have a good mission statement. What does that mean? Don't overdo it, right? Websites, social, paid search, Zoom room, PR. I'm going to give you some examples now. What's the time? We've got a little time left. Let me show you some things. What we've done since COVID started, I'm going to give you some ideas that may spark some of your thing. We ran a national native ad. We ran an ad in all the major newspaper websites in the country. This was the ad, how to boost your business in a digital environment. And it's one of my webinars. It's one of my core webinars. We printed this out, we sent it out via digital to all, I think it was like 1 million, who knows. What was the result? Nothing. Not one lead. Did we waste our money? No, because if you Google that, we're in the top 2. We have a YouTube and we also have the NKBA webinar, which I did a couple of years ago, and the third one. So 1, 2, and 3 are our SEO. So, and I can tell you, people still review that, even though it's a couple of years old, because the content hasn't changed. The virus hasn't changed the way you stay in front of people. So that actually was the investment. That was about $5,000. It didn't do much except help our SEO. We did a direct mail to our clients. We bought marbles and put them in a little bag. We put this is the outer envelope, and the white space above that guy, right below his glasses, was where we put the address. The card is a two-sided card, and we changed where you see fire engineering. We changed it and customized it to every client we had. So if he was in the HVAC business or in the plumbing business, we changed those big words in there. And on the back was just our services. But the important message was, let's not lose our marbles over this virus thing, right? And we sent this to our clients, all of our clients. And we waited, and we waited, and nothing happened. So after the first week, we called the clients. Did you get our mailing? Oh, no, we've not been in the office. Oops. In our enthusiasm, I forgot that nobody's going to the office anymore. They were, quote, locked down. And some of those customers and clients took the mandate seriously. They didn't figure out a way around it. So we had a great discussion. We laughed about the theory. And I said, when you get back to the office, we said to them, make sure you get the mailing. Or do you want me to send it to your home? No, that's okay. I'm just trying to remind you, we don't want to stop business. No, you're right, Jim. And what happened? From that discussion, 3 projects. 3. We did email blasts. We did postcards. And one of the reasons we're an essential business is we sell soap. And what better thing to fight a virus than soap? We even have a website called, germs are everywhere, right? So germs, buy your soap off, and we got these little germ creatures that you can go online and get things, right? Killthegerms.com. Killthegerms.com. Not that I'm saying you should buy our stuff. I revamped every webinar I did because COVID changed it, right? It used to take these organizations sometimes 2 to 3 weeks to approve webinars. When we would write a new course, we'd submit them. You go through a process. And by the way, these are great organizations to work for. I would revamp an existing one to focus on COVID, special COVID-19 edition. I think the fastest I got it approved was 1 day. But I was getting it approved in 1 to 4 days, 3 days. I think the fastest was a day. Because people are thirsty for information to help them. And that's what you're hearing today as a result of that. How to target your customers, special COVID-19. This is what was revamped from what it was before. It looks nothing like before, except the tactics are the same. We tried podcasts. We did podcasts are great. They're recordings. People listen to them in the car. We also have a rep firm. So we did podcasts for the products that we represent. These were done Friday for 15 minutes. These were great tactics. And they resulted in conversations, which resulted in a few orders. You see the pattern? You got to have conversations. I did interviews with media outlets. Commercial Construction and Renovation is one of the top media outlets. I've known David Corson for many years. He said, Jim, can we talk? Can I interview you? I said, absolutely. I'll talk to anybody. Anything that moves. So we did this, and we promoted it. Some people listened to it. I got 1 call out of it. 1 call. 1 call asking me to clarify something I said. Right? Did that result in any business? Not right now, but I got a call. LinkedIn is God's gift to everyone here. LinkedIn is how you network. LinkedIn is how you meet new people. LinkedIn, and all the people you're looking at here were people I did not have in my sights until after COVID hit. From the attending of webinars, from the attending of just listening to webinars, and from them coming to me and asking to LinkedIn. And what that does is result in conversations. I blog a lot. I write a lot. The more content you have, the more chances you are of being on page 1. If you look at the second one on the left, a plea to ban masks from business meeting, was when I first attended the business meeting from a brand new client that we got during COVID. And he invited me over. I told you that story before where I had the mask on with the thermometer. It was a great meeting. Great meeting. That's the story. This got a lot of views between the time I posted it until the end of last year. We also attended webinars and shared information. We created Navigating COVID in Sales and Marketing series at the end of last year, and this is one of our greatest assets in terms of content, because people who are looking for ideas and solutions find us, read it, and I'm certainly gain something out of it, or they hate us. And remember, as long as they're not indifferent, I'm a happy guy, right? We receive referrals. One of the referrals was from a Malaysian architect, one of the leading eco-architects in the world, a guy by the name of Ken Yang, who had met me 5 years ago. 5 years ago at the AIA convention in Miami. He remembered me. He got my pamphlets. Last year in the middle of summer, he surfaced and he said, "I'm looking to come to the United States. Can we work together?" And we collaborated. That was totally. Now, why do you think the leading architect in eco-architecture wants to collaborate and come to America? Because everybody's looking for business, right? Everybody's looking for business. Become the news cycle. You're looking at a postcard on the right that came to me, right? It was mailed in 2016. It was mailed in 2016, and it showed up during COVID. It came back to me, returned to sender, right? I saw that. It was unbelievable. So I tweeted about it. I posted it on LinkedIn. I said, this was a while ago, so there's been many more comments on there since then. I was wondering where the heck this has been in the post office. And I thank the USPS for their honesty. It became one of the most talked about. I saw your post, the clients would say, because your clients should be following you on social media. All right. We're almost done. It's 10:51. Ways to stay targeting. Use the phone. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call and leave a message. The phone is a secret weapon, and it's a great weapon if you know how to use it. I love calling because I don't know who's going to answer. And I learn so much when I talk to people. I talked to a plumbing contractor last week in Texas. We were doing research for a company. And she expounded on what the hell happened in Texas that you only read about in the news and how busy her husband's firm was. It was a 15-minute call that resulted in totally unduplicated knowledge that may or may not lead to business. Not everything you do is going to lead to an order. The internet, activities, do PR, press releases, media, get interviewed by the local newspaper, radio station, television station. Spray and pray. If you don't want to target, spray and pray, as my captain in the Marine Corps Artillery used to tell me. Shoot at everything that moves because you will hit something. And write letters. Jim, you're a dinosaur. Letters don't work. Yes, they do. I'm just telling you, yes, they do. We had a situation with a major publisher. I'm not going to mention their name. We canceled our subscription. This is a consumer magazine, right? I wrote I found out who the president was, and I wrote him a letter. And I said, we tried to cancel it. They automatically renewed. They took our credit card information, which they shouldn't have had because I changed the credit card. And they hit the credit card for not an exorbitant amount of money. It was $30, but it's the principle of the thing, right? So I wrote a letter to the president of the publishing company. The next week, after I wrote the letter, the office manager comes and says, "Jim, there's, so-and-so is on the phone. Let's call him Mr. M. Mr. M is on the phone." I go, "Oh yeah, he wants to talk to you." I get on the phone with Mr. M and he says, "Anybody who sends me an overnight letter, UPS letter, USPS letter, deserves a call back. And I want you to know I'm looking into this situation. This is just not right." We had a 4-minute conversation. It was great. We first name basis now, and now I have a contact. Right? Did it result in business? That doesn't matter. Most of you in the audience are scientists, right? And if you're scientists, you know Newtonian physics. And you know one of Newton's laws? For every action, there's a reaction. Even if you think there is no reaction is sometimes a reaction. And just because you can't see the reaction doesn't mean it didn't happen. You know that as well as I do. So just remember this. Everything you do from now until you get this thing going again, despite all the commotion going on, everything you do is practice, preparing, and will have a reaction. You just don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But if you don't start firing, if you don't start doing these things, nothing will happen. You'll be like Jim Lovell's third group. You'll be wondering what the hell happened. Well, stop wondering and let's do it. All right. Time for questions. Come on. Do I see any questions? Now I'm going to go and I'm going to go to my dashboard. Oh, it looks like everybody's been paying very good attention. That's great. I don't see any questions. Is there a question coming in? 1, 2, 3. I can't see any questions. All right. No questions? 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. This was sponsored by KB Resource. Please visit them. If you have any questions that you don't want to talk about with other people, because I got 40 people in the audience and I can't answer all of you. But if you want to talk to me, email me your question. I'll be happy to respond. You can call me, 847-358-4848. If you go to interlinegroup.com/evaluate, I'll send you all of our 8 guides. Those are the same guides that the Malaysian architect took 5 years ago and actually used them to spread through his firm. At Interline Jim is my Twitter account. Please follow me. We love to tweet. I love to tweet. If you need the credit and you got a self-report, please do so. If you need help reporting, just send us an email. We'll be happy to help you through that. On behalf of everyone at Interline Creative Group, I'd like to thank you for your attention. I know your time is limited, but you spent it with us, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you very much, and have a great day.